On our continuing series of candidate interviews, we welcome running for mayor of the city of Shelton, a nonpartisan office for a 4-year term, MARILYN VOGLER. MARILYN, good morning.
Thank you and good morning to you.
Welcome to the studio. Our first question right out of the gate, what's your platform?
I think if I had to summarize it, it would be building activism for Shelton. I see a tremendous amount of energy in people here, wonderful positive energy. Generally, it's centered around issues. It was, before I arrived, it was the biomass incinerator. Most recently, it's been the pool. There was tremendous activity that culminated in the ribbon cutting for the Shelton Creek Trail. It tends to be issue-centered, and at the same time, city boards, commissions, advisory groups have a really hard time getting volunteers. The Poverty Task Force Follow-Up Committee had a hard time even getting off the ground because they couldn't meet the minimum membership. Particularly with the mill closing, we need to support local merchants. And yet I have a lot of friends who talk about all the things they buy at Costco. It drives me crazy. I want to say, be activists for Shelton, and that means supporting local merchants, volunteering on a day-to-day basis to continue the issue energy, but also that the city needs activism day-to-day. It needs everybody's participation.
MARILYN, why did you decide to run this year?
Well, I've been involved in a lot of activities since I moved here. I retired in 2010 and over the years have developed a lot of work skills from life and mentoring. So I got involved right away with a lot of volunteer things, Park Rec, the Library Board, Area Agency on Aging, and through that I'm on the State Council on Aging. The Senior Lobby, Housing Coalition, it's just grown. And so I begin to see some connections between all of these, mostly around the notion of what makes a livable community. There are a couple of projects coming up that I really think I can contribute to in a positive fashion. One of the things that I bring is the fact that I haven't lived here my whole life. I think I bring a fresh set of eyes. It's kind of like Barb Weeses said at a Housing Coalition meeting. It was an executive team, and we'd gone on and on. I'd asked questions and diverted the conversation, and as we left, I said, hey, you all, if you really get tired of me, why, just tell me to be quiet. And Barb said to me, well, MARILYN, the rest of us have been here for a very long time. And you ask questions about how we do things and why we do things that we wouldn't even think to ask. And so we've got two issues. We've got Fraterra that's presented a visioning plan, and this will be aired later, but as we speak, it's 2 days from now. I went on the walking tour, and they had some wonderful ideas. What I've heard since has been, well, we don't have the money for that. And that's going to be hard because we just signed a contract to do things the way we had done them in the past. And we don't have the real estate to do that. We just don't do things that way. I want to be in a position to push commissioners, to push staff, organizations, to comb through that report and say, what can we do? Find out the smallest things you can that you can contribute to doing rather than not doing. The other thing are the comprehensive plans. City and county both have comprehensive plan revisions due. And again, I think a fresh set of eyes asking questions is important. I certainly don't have the answers. I have ideas that may be starting points for answers, and apparently I do have a talent for asking really good questions. So with that, I can be a full-time mayor, and I look forward to using the skills I have for this city that I have chosen to move to.
Marilyn, give us a reason why voters should pick you over your opponent.
Um, that one's hard because certainly I hope people will vote for me. I think I have a really good chance. Mostly, though, I hope that whoever people vote for, they vote for someone rather than against. And I think there's a big difference. I think people should vote for me because I do bring an excitement of somebody who's relatively new, who's been involved, who's exploring and discovering just the wonderful things about the area that I love to share. As I said, I'm retired. I can be a full-time mayor. I've been, really active across a broad spectrum at city, county, state levels. I have testified before the Senate Government Ops Committee here in Olympia, or over in Olympia, about the tiny homes bill. It didn't make it through. I work well across party lines. I'm mostly, I guess, a Democrat. Some of the Democrats don't think so sometimes. Had a really good conversation with Dan Griffey over in his office. He took almost an hour talking about the tiny homes bill with me. Work well with the county commission. I've been involved working with transit. I've spoken out at public health, so I have broad interests, broad connections, and a tremendous amount of excitement for this place.
Finally, Marilyn, what would you consider the most pressing or important issue facing the voters this upcoming election?
I guess I think, it has to be jobs. Part of it is the recent mill closing, but this isn't new in Shelton. I think it's a tremendously complex issue. So I want to talk about it in two pieces. There's a long-term need to look at jobs. But I think there has to be a really hard discussion about who we are as a community. I've heard some groups, some people say, well, we have a workforce that fits a manufacturing job base. That's who we need to bring in. And other people will shake their heads and say, but manufacturing is minimum wage, that won't support a living wage. People can't afford to live on a minimum wage job, so we can't do that. I've heard another person say, well, we need to bring in somebody who will hire at a living wage job. We need to spend we need to spend time training our workforce, and I've seen people shake their heads and say that won't work here. Tourism is brought up. We have a beautiful part of the country to bring people to. I have lived where tourism drove the economy. It changes who a community is. For one thing, the income is seasonal. It means shop owners have to be open evenings 7 days a week. They have to be here when the tourists are here. It means you have to pay really close attention to how you look, how the entrances of the city look. You have to be on show 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. That's an option. But I think it's something people have to understand before they say tourism is the answer. Some people have said, well, we've got a lot of retirees come in. We need to appeal to the senior community. And yet I have a couple of friends who are reaching retirement age who have moved to Olympia. They move there for transportation, for senior housing. There's a tremendous investment necessary to bring seniors into your community. So that's long term. We need to have that conversation. Short term, there was a resource fair following the closure of the mill, the announcement. There was a job fair that apparently drew a huge crowd. Lynn Longan has said that they intend to have another in the fall. I would like to be in a position to encourage people to make that an annual event, to include our high school students as specific invitees. I think the other really encouraging thing for short term is Mason Transit. They have had for a long time commuter runs to Olympia that were standing room only. They added new runs in April. They've got runs to Bremerton as well as Olympia. Those, I gather, are almost at capacity again. They've just gotten a state grant. They'll be buying 3 new buses next year, mid-October. They'll be adding express lines to the Bremerton Ferry Terminal. It will be doing a horseshoe loop from Bremerton through Shelton over to Olympia, which means that people can live in Shelton, which is a wonderful place to live, and get easily and cheaply to areas where there are jobs. And I think that's the immediate short-term answer.
Running for the city of Shelton mayor position, a nonpartisan office. It's a 4-year term. The challenger, MARILYN VOGLER. MARILYN, thank you so much for your time.
And thank you for yours.